Hello and welcome to Spirit Quest Reviews. I will be your host on this journey. I will be your tour guide through the wonderful land of whiskey and spirits. Given that this is our first review together, I think it's only appropriate that I review my first whiskey. And the first whiskey which I experienced is Jim Beam Bourbon, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. There's a signature here, James B. Beam, none genuine but mine. Now, this bourbon has been aged for 4 years. The federal requirement is at least 2, so you think that that's good, you think that's a long time. It's really not. And when you taste it, you will understand this is not an old spirit. It's not bad, but it is young. And it lacks some of the subtler notes and some of the complexities of older whiskeys. But that's okay. Furthermore, on the bottle, it has an image of the 7 generations of the Beam family, starting with, I don't know if you can see this, starting with Jacob Beam and ending with Fred Noe. And Fred Noe is 1957 to present, even though Fred Noe really doesn't do anything for the Beam company. No, the CEO of Beam is a man by the name of Shattuck, and Beam itself is owned by a company called Suntory in Japan. So Beam isn't really owned locally, operated by family. That's all just marketing and gimmicks. In fact, the Beam company itself owns numerous brands that you may be familiar with if you're a long-time drinker, such as Booker's, Baker's, Old Grandad, Old Crow, Knob Creek. They also own the distillery which produces Maker's Mark. That's right, Maker's Mark Distillery is owned by the Beam Company. Surprise, surprise. And believe it or not, even Lafroig Scotch Isla is owned by the Beam Company, which surprised me. I did not know that myself until recently. So there's your bit of whiskey trivia knowledge for today. And not that that has any bearing on the quality of spirit that Lafroig Distillery produces or Maker's Mark or anything else, but just so you are aware, when you buy Lafroig, part of the proceeds go to the Beam Company and to Suntory in Japan. So much for the company and the history. What about the spirit? Now, like I said, if you are a new drinker, I have some advice for you that may help you experience whiskey in a more optimal way. Especially if you believe that you do not like whiskey. And you may not everybody does, but before you come to the conclusion that you don't like whiskey and you never want to try whiskey again, I have some advice for you to try out, experiment with this, and see if it doesn't help you enjoy whiskey just a little bit more. See, I feel like most people, when they start drinking, especially whiskey, the way they drink it goes something like this. They go to a friend's house or to a bar, and somebody pours them a shot glass that looks like this. And you can see that it's open on the top. It just lets the aroma fly away. And most people aren't even concerned with smelling the aroma. Most people don't go to a shot glass and like, oh, that smells so good. Oh, no. nobody does that. When you have a shot glass, you take it and you... oh, man. And that's probably a lot like what your first experience with whiskey looked like. And when I did that, I don't know about you. Tell me if this has been your experience. Tell me if I'm wrong. But what just happened to me, what I experienced, I got a mouthful of sand flavor and wood and ethanol and burn and pain. And it burned me all the way down my throat. And some people may describe Jim Beam as being smooth. And it may be compared to some lower quality spirits. But really, any alcohol that you do as a shot is not going to be smooth, right? So, if that is how you have experienced Jim Beam, I have something for you to try before you give up on Jim Beam or whiskey in general. First of all, sorry, that shot is still getting to me. If you can obtain this glass, this is a Glencairn glass, and it's wider at the base, which allows for evaporation, but it also tapers in towards the nose, which channels the aromas, which allows you to nose it better. And nosing it, what difference does that make? You don't want to smell ethanol, right? You don't want to smell alcohol and burn your nose hairs, right? But you don't. You don't with this glass. Oh, yes. That's much better. I can smell pine, wood spice, a little bit of vanilla. Possibly a sugary maple syrup. Not as much as with Jack Daniels, mind you, but that's a story for another day. I do get a sweet candy smell in the nose. Besides the alcohol, of course, you're gonna smell ethanol. And that's a point, by the way, I want to talk about with new whiskey drinkers, by the way. When you hear people talking about tasting notes or smelling notes, nosings, of course, we are smelling the ethanol. Okay? But what we're doing is we're looking under that, or above that, around that, through that. We are looking for something besides the ethanol. And when you're new, this won't come as easy to you. It will take some practice. I would recommend looking up reviews like this one and pouring yourself a glass and see if you can smell the same thing. See if you can taste the same thing. Train your palate to recognize the flavors that people describe in any given spirit. And before long, you will start to pick up on these notes as well. You will notice them as well. So, if you are with me, pour yourself a glass. I'll wait. Get yourself some Jim Beam bourbon. It's pretty inexpensive. Pour a glass. Experience it with me. If you can't get this glass, a shot glass will kind of work if you fill it up only about halfway and give yourself some space to nose it. But really, if you can, try to get one of these glasses. Okay. So, all together now. Wood spice. Sugary maple. I get a little bit of pine sol. And I could just be hallucinating here, but I get the faintest trace of lavender. So, now for the taste. I get peanuts. Circus peanuts. Yeah, those little sugary orangey candies. They come like $1 for 1,000 of them. You know the kind of candies I'm talking about. I get that taste in this whiskey, and it's not bad. It's a lot better when you get about a teaspoon's worth in your mouth, about 5 milliliters or so. You don't want to drink any more than that at one time. Like, see how little I drank of this whiskey. You remember how much there was before. I did not put very much in my mouth at all. And the reason I didn't is because I don't want to overwhelm myself. And that's what happens with a shot. You just overwhelm your palate. Don't do that to yourself. You're worth more than that. This whiskey cost you good money. Okay, even if it's cheap, you still paid for it, didn't you? So take your time. Enjoy it. Don't rush yourself. Don't rush yourself. Take your time. Really savor it. Experience it. Tell me what you found, if you would, in the comments. Tell me what your first whiskey was. Mine was Jim Beam. Tell me what you experienced. Tell me if you got the oak and vanilla, the wood spice, and even the circus peanuts or the detergent taste and lavender. Because that's what I got. What you may get is something else. But you won't know what you're tasting until you take the time to taste it correctly. And not that there's a wrong way to experience whiskey, by the way, but if you take the time to enjoy it, you may find yourself having a better experience than if you were to just jam it down your throat. So, I do believe this is everything I wanted to tell you. So if you enjoyed this content, please stick around. I will be having more episodes, obviously. Please like and subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Do me a huge favor and share this with your friends. And if this helps you and you know anyone else who has been drinking whiskey like what I just showed you, like taking shots of it and just overwhelming themselves and just jamming a bunch of wood and ethanol flavors down their throat and then complaining about it and saying, oh, that hurt, that was painful, I don't like whiskey. If you know anyone like that, share this with them. Explain to them how to taste whiskey in a more optimal way. And tell me the results. Tell me if this worked. And if it did, please do me a favor and stick around. I will see you next time.